I decided to have a little retreat time for myself, and I spent last weekend, Mother's Day weekend, at the coast. I was in the Yachats area, for those of you who know it. For those of you who have never been to the Oregon coast, put it on your bucket list. It is extraordinary, but just note, the Oregon coast is very unlike its quiet, calm, sun-drenched little sister beaches of Malibu and Maui. Oh no, the Oregon coast, our Oregon coast speaks unapologetically with her outside voice. I think the Oregon coast is the beach for redheads. I was really thinking about sunscreen, but those of you gingers or ginger adjacent, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I'm always bundled up when I go to the coast. If it is a California beach, I've got an umbrella and bullfrog all over my nose with a gigantic hat. If I'm at the Oregon coast, I'm bundled up in coats and hats and mittens and all the things. Oh, but I had a wonderful time. I spent a lot of time in meditation and in prayer. And while I was there, I just loved Shelley's talk last week. Oh my goodness. She spoke about the connection between our body temple and Mother Earth. Oh, so yummy if you haven't yet seen it. I invite you into that. I could really viscerally feel that in my body temple when I was at the coast last weekend. And I sat on a bench, which eventually became my favorite bench, all bundled up. And I was just in awe. You know how that happens when you go to the ocean, if you have had that opportunity. My goodness, I just sat there in awe watching the towering and relentless strength of those magnificent waves, and I felt the overwhelming power of the ocean. And what kept coming to me over and over and over again with every wave that surged forward and smashed up against the rocks, surprised the heck out of me. Because in the midst of all of Mother Earth's power and strength, with each crash of a wave came a word, and that word was kindness. Kindness with a capital K kept coming to me over and over again. And each time more powerful kindness. I did not expect that from those waves. Kindness, the ocean told me. We need the power of kindness now more than ever. And what was extraordinary about this for me personally was that I think for the very first time in my life, the sheer power and authority and strength of kindness made itself known to me. And I recognized within myself that kindness is not only a God quality or an attribute of the divine or spirit, but kindness with a capital K is a spiritual practice. And I realized that we have never specifically taught that here. We've never named it as such. We've never named it as kindness. But I believe what is happening right now during this time in American history is calling us into a profound new kind of way of thinking about kindness. When I looked it up, the history of the word kindness blew me away. The origin of the word kind meant to give birth. So when we decide to choose kindness towards someone, we are essentially giving birth to something new. Out of the womb of darkness, our choice to bring kindness Our choice of kindness brings forth new energy. Think about that for a moment. Think about when you extend kindness to someone, what happens in their eyes. Something is born in that moment, and it is holy. Kindness. Kind means to give birth to something. My talk today is called Your Soul's Secret Superpower. Say that 3 times really fast. Okay, the cat's out of the bag. Kindness is your secret superpower. Ernest Holmes wrote, "Kindness is love in action. It dissolves fear, heals separation, and transforms the world." In this world of ours where we are seeing so much cruelty and intentional cruelty, consciously choosing kindness as a response is a revolutionary act. Now, I want to be very, very clear here. We can still be angry at the state of things. But in choosing kindness, it transforms our anger into something more productive, something more powerful, something more potent, and ultimately something more transformative. Anger meeting anger is more anger. Anger meeting kindness transforms the entire situation. It transforms the energy field. It raises the vibrational frequency. It surprises the person who is so angry. When you respond with kindness, it throws them off their game. And they remember the truth of who they are somewhere deep inside of their soul. They remember that we are one. They remember that we belong to each other, whether they can name it or not. Somewhere inside of them, when you meet that vitriol and that anger with kindness, you transform it. You transform it. We can choose kindness at marches and rallies. We can choose kindness in our communities with people we disagree with. We can choose kindness in our families with family members that we struggle with. We can choose kindness towards ourselves, perhaps the most difficult of all. And I will get to that in a moment. The power of kindness is, in fact, when you really sit with it, the most transformative tool during times of conflict that we have. The spiritual practice, the superpower of our soul, kindness has birthed the good in our shared history, has righted the wrongs, has authored new ways of being, has inspired new ways of becoming. Kindness isn't just a feeling. As the ocean taught me, kindness is a force. Kindness is a force to be reckoned with. Kindness will move people to action, to courage, and to change the world. A woman known worldwide for her kindness was named Jane Addams. Addams spelled with 2 D's. She was the very first American woman to receive the Nobel Peace Prize. She is widely considered the GOAT, as they say, as the kids say, the greatest of all time, the first original true activist and organizer, Jane Addams. She started it all. She modeled how to be an effective activist by leading with kindness. She worked tirelessly supporting women's suffrage, sanitation and child labor laws, workers' rights, and the NAACP. In 1892, she co-founded the ACLU, the American Civil Liberties Union. At the University of Chicago, she was intimately involved with the founding and the development of sociology as a field of study here in the United States. In 1893, armed with her superpower, She helped to ban sweatshops and the employment of children. Jane Addams has been honored countless times as one of our nation's greatest LGBTQ heroes. But perhaps her greatest contribution was in 1889 when she founded a place in Chicago called Hull House. For those of you who don't know, Hull House was the very first settlement house in the United States. It provided shelter for those newly arrived to the US. It provided education and health care, job training for immigrants and the very poor. It served as a residence for the impoverished Halsted Street area in a densely populated urban Chicago neighborhood of Italian, Irish, German, Greek, Czech, Russian, Polish, and Jewish immigrants. Hull House offered a place where immigrants and neighbors could commune together and learn and share and acquire tools that would help them put down roots in their new country. There were 13 buildings in total, the Hull House, extraordinary. Kindergarten and daycare facilities for the children of working mothers. She was so ahead of her time. An employment bureau, an art gallery, library, English and citizenship night classes, theater, music, and art classes. She championed arts for helping to heal. There were all kinds of sewing and technical skills and classes in American government classes. Hull House was truly a safe haven where immigrants could find belonging in their new community. And by 1920, her commitment to kindness as a way of being in the world caught on. And because of this, over 500 settlement houses opened across the United States. This is before social media. Can you imagine? And all of these settlement houses were dedicated to supporting immigrants. I promise we will get back there. We will. Now, Jane Addams came from a childhood of privilege and wealth and influence. Her father served in the Illinois State Senate for 16 years. He even knew President Abraham Lincoln. There was a lot of wealth, a lot of influence, but unlike so much of the greed and the unconscionable behavior that we are seeing today from our current administration and the majority of the billionaires in our country, Jane Addams not only founded Hull House, she moved into Hull House. Jane Addams believed in working with the community rather than just providing charity to it. She lived among the people she served, the newly arrived immigrants, the poorest in the community, so that she could learn from them. When Jane Addams died in 1935, she was arguably one of the best-known female public figures in the United States. And aside from all of her accomplishments, what made her famous, what made her well-known, what she was actually known for, is something I think the current influencers might want to take note of. Just some of them. She was known for her superpower. She was known for her kindness. She bettered the lives of generations of people here in the United States, many of who I am sure are not even aware that they are descendants of her kindness, something that ultimately changed the trajectory of their lives today for the better, no matter who they voted for. She did that. She did that. And here is the thing. Kindness is proximity. Kindness is proximity. In metaphysical terms, proximity means alignment or vibrating at the same frequency, being in resonance with another soul, even if you have never met them. So in our global world, how do we do that? How do we practice kindness as proximity, kindness as alignment? Because we can't physically be right there with all of our siblings around the world dealing with war and violence. We can't physically be with all of our migrant communities or trans communities across this country. However, when we consciously choose to align ourselves with them energetically and identify ourselves with them, with, let's say, for example, the migrant community and what is happening to their families, as Jane Addams did 150 years ago, when more and more of us align ourselves with them, everything will shift, just like it did in her time, from one settlement house to 500. When we align with them, it will shift. Not just pay lip service, but fully align. I invite us to think of kindness with a capital K, you know? It changes the word, it gives it oomph. It gives it that spiritual, holy feeling. Kindness. Kindness with a capital K is not just a nice gesture, rather it is a full-scale recognition of the divine in another person. That divine recognition requires proximity. It requires alignment, whether it is emotional, spiritual, or physical. When we imagine the light in another being or in groups of beings, when we allow ourselves to lean into and feel their humanness, lean into and feel their hearts, we are no longer separate, we are one. And that is how we practice our faith in New Thought. And whenever we can be in physical proximity, the love and the oneness is magnified in an even greater way. We at NTCSL have some very special programming coming up to support our local migrant community. If you are interested in aligning yourself with this sacred work and you haven't yet signed up to support our immigrant protection social justice team, I invite you to go to our website, newthoughtcsl.org. I invite you into that so that you can participate in aligning with our migrant siblings here in our community. Today, if you are here in person, we're doing another one of our Blessings in a Backpack event downstairs. We do these periodically throughout the year. How many of you have participated in a Blessings in a Backpack? Yes, right on. I love all the hands that just went up. That is so great. We have such a great time together. If you're new or you haven't yet done that, we go downstairs and, oh my goodness, we partner with Whitman Elementary School, where 96% of those kiddos are food insecure. And we get to be kindness in proximity and align ourselves with those sweet children today. If you have even just 15 minutes after service and you can join us downstairs and just help us pack a lunch or write a little love note, a little note of support to a kiddo, it would be wonderful. It would be wonderful. I also want to let you know, do you remember a while back when the president of Ukraine, Vladimir Zelensky, clearly weary of the 3-year-long war, went to the White House to try to get support from us, and he was so horrifically mistreated by the current administration. And in response to that, we as a community had postcards made, and we went downstairs for a couple of Sundays after service, and we filled out a couple hundred postcards letting them know that we love them and that we are so sorry and that's not representative of who we are as a faith community and we support Ukraine. Do you remember? Do you remember that? Well, I want to let you know kindness is proximity, kindness is alignment. We received a postcard from the Ukrainian embassy. I want to read this to you. It says, and on the front, you can't probably see it, there are two flags, here we go, the American flag and the Ukraine flag together. It says, "Dear friends, thank you for your heartfelt letters and unwavering support. Every message is a reminder that we are not alone in this fight for freedom and justice. Stronger together. With gratitude, Oksana Markarova, Ambassador of Ukraine to the USA." Kindness is proximity. Kindness is alignment. The ancient Hebrew scripture teaches in Psalm 89, the world is built on kindness. The world is built on kindness. The world, our world, is born from kindness. From kindness. But what if someone in your life is unkind to you, you might be thinking? This happens to all of us. For example, after all that Jane Addams had done when the United States entered World War I, she was a very loud voice for peace. She had tried to prevent us going into that war. She wrote many articles about the destruction that war causes on generations of people. But when we did enter that war, much of the American public turned on her. They called her names. There were cartoons that made fun of her. They called her a traitor. Jane Addams. But she always responded with kindness. Always. Powerful kindness. She responded with the force of kindness. And after the war, when the soldiers came home, there was a profound understanding that peace would have actually been much better. And that we would always be wise to stay out of war. They learned that she was right. And in a fairly short amount of time, the respect and love for Jane Addams was restored. So, what do we do when people in our lives are unkind or distant or dismissive or challenging? Now, I'm not talking about a person in your life who might have mental illness. I'm not talking about that level of toxicity. I'm just talking about, like the people you run into out in the world, maybe people in your family. What if they are unkind to you? Do you remember the phrase, kill them with kindness? Please do not do that. We don't kill them with kindness. We heal them with kindness. We heal them with kindness, with our force of kindness. A simple way of saying this is to just keep choosing the high road. I love that beautiful line from the First Lady Michelle Obama, when they go low, we go high. Oh, there is such extraordinary wisdom in that. Again, it doesn't mean we aren't angry. That's not this. This is not a Pollyanna conversation. This is strategic. This is thoughtful. This is powerful. This is transformative. Kindness is transformative. My friends, don't take the bait. Don't take the bait. Heal them with your kindness. Heal them with your kindness. Now, as you begin to think about this differently, as you begin to dive into this holy work in a more conscious way, really choosing to respond with kindness, please remember that kindness is a muscle. It's a muscle. It's something that we develop over time if we choose. It's something that we, if we choose, can build to greater and greater degrees within ourselves. And this is especially true if you were not raised with particularly kind people, or if you saw a good amount of unkindness in your life. It's important to remember that kindness is actually your divine inheritance. It is your birthright. I think some of us have well-developed kindness muscles towards others, but perhaps we have a little bit of work to do in the area of kindness towards ourselves. Anybody? All of us? If you can begin to think of kindness as a spiritual practice like building muscles in a gym, this will support you. So when you recognize that you are being unkind towards yourself, whatever that may look like for you, for some folks it looks like that inner critic voice, which by the way is not your voice, it's the voice of the people who are around you when you grew up, or society when you were growing up. That inner critic voice is not yours. It may look like, for some of you, self-sabotage, when you engage in a behavior that cuts off the good that is wanting to flow to you. Or it may look like low self-esteem or low self-worth in some area or areas of your life. Whatever that may be for you, wherever it may be hard for you to be kind to yourself, I invite you to take a breath and just think, imagine the power of the waves of the ocean washing that inner critic, that self-sabotage, that low self-worth clean. Let that force of kindness, if you can visualize that, let that force of kindness wash that clutter and falsity and those lies clean until it is purely clear. Imagine that each wave brings you self-kindness and self-love and self-worth. And you can do this anywhere. If that pops up and you're, I don't know, in line at the post office, you can just take a breath and imagine those waves washing those false thoughts clean, taking them from you and out, back, away. In this life, you get to know that you are profoundly loved. You are profoundly loved and you are profoundly worthy, exactly as you are right now. Exactly as you are right now. And each one of us here gets to practice the transformative power of kindness towards others, towards ourselves. So as you go out into the week, please remember, kindness is a spiritual practice. Kindness always gives birth to something new. Kindness is your birthright, and you are so very, very loved.